Brothers and sisters, our Blessed Mother Mary was and is a lay woman. She wasn't a nun. She wasn't, a religious sister, consecrated religious sister in the sense of those apostolic sisters who serve so many needs of the church, from education to healthcare to works of charity with the poor, etc. And yet Our Lady is the great model of contemplatives. So those men and women who have been called to set apart their life for the single purpose of pursuing God in prayer and sacrifice and community life, living a very radical life for the sake of the world. And Mary, from the gospel, we see, spent, from what we could see, she's very hidden. Her life is quite hidden, other than the mysteries of her going in the visitation and her going in the gospel to the presentation of the Lord. And we can assume that Mary lived a very ordinary lay life, a woman who was truly present in the world and to the needs of the world and to those who came across her door, and to love and serve them. She didn't flee from the world, but she had a gift though that the rest of us don't have. She was born without sin, and so she was able to maintain a perfect union with God in her mind and heart. God was ever present to her, you could say, and so she could live this fullness of the contemplative life even in the midst of the busyness of things. And that's something, a gift that we all should try and cultivate and work towards greatly, to cultivate this sense of being in God's presence. But for the rest of us, because we struggle with sin and the wounds of sin, we must put real concrete things in place to create this life. But come back to this theme, Mary is the model of the contemplatives, or even hermits, men and women who seek to be alone with the alone, not as some selfish escape from the world, but rather hearts full of love, who want to sacrifice the joys of the immediate present life for a life that is dedicated to prayer and love, because they believe in this utmost conviction that prayer is the greatest thing we can offer for other brothers and sisters. Now, God doesn't call everybody to be hermits and pure contemplatives, but for those who have received that revelation of that great grace, it is a great serious gift that they must take seriously for the sake of others and for souls. I just want to read for you in a great document, Vita Consecrata, which is an exhortation by Pope St. John Paul II on consecrated life and the gift that it is in the life of the church. He speaks about hermits, he speaks about widows, he speaks about virgins, consecrated virgins, he speaks about those dedicated specifically to contemplation. I'd like to mention the hermit, the widow, and those institutes of men and women completely dedicated to prayer and contemplation. See, one of the first temptations we must resist is to think that these lives are not really Christian. We might think that, the true Christian life is, like Christ. He left Nazareth, he went into the world, he served, he preached, he took up the hardships of others in direct ways, he healed, he fed, he looked after the poor, the suffering. And that's true. And there are many people in the church that imitate that. But the whole church is like the living Christ. And so many moments of his life are still alive in the church, and they're reflected in different ways. We are not Jesus Christ, we're not God-man. So we often in our own personal lives reflect one little aspect of his life. And so these men and women dedicated to prayer reflect the times where Christ was in the desert alone, or a lot of that time alone, hidden life in Nazareth, and other times of his life where he was in desert fasting for 40 days, etc. So regarding hermits, the church says men and women hermits belong to the ancient orders, bear witness to the passing nature of the present age by their inward and outward separation from the world. By fasting and penance, they show that man does not live by bread alone, but by the word of God. Such a life in the desert is an invitation to their contemporaries, to all of us, to the ecclesial community itself, never to lose sight of the supreme vocation, which is to be always with the Lord. So So these men and women have a witness in the life of the church to remind us. So these hermits remind us that, well, this most supreme vocation we don't need an apology for is to pull aside and to be with the Lord. That is our ultimate vocation, to love God above all things, to be with him. But being with him in prayer means that we get to be with everybody, because we know prayer touches people in far-off lands. We serve the needs of others. And so this is something really important. When he talks about those institutes devoted completely to contemplation, he says that they bear a singular testimony of the church's love for her Lord, and they contribute with hidden apostolic fruitfulness to the growth of the people of God. Thus, there's good reason to hope that the different forms of contemplative life will experience continued growth in the younger churches, because when you have contemplative life in a church, it shows that church is mature and bearing great fruit.